Okay, we ran out of time in class today to cover everything, so I'm just going to do a really quick, hopefully little video of some of the things that you will encounter in your homework this first week that hopefully are review. So we're going to come back to this one, but we're also going to be doing the distributive property. We're going to be working out how to factor out the greatest common factor. We're going to be reviewing order of operations real quick, and in fact at the very end I'm going to actually do one from your homework right here. So that way, if there's something here you need to see, you'll at least know what we're going to cover. Okay, we practice clearing out fractions in the very beginning as the class, but they also want you to clear out decimals. So when you get ready to do something, realize that you want these to be all nice whole numbers. That just means like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, no decimals, no fractions. So I would have to move this decimal 2 places to get it a whole number. That means I need to move all decimals, all numbers. I need to move it over twice. So this would become a 42. And I had started this one and then I got interrupted. If I move this one twice, 1, 2, it becomes 140. Move this one twice and I end up with a 20. Okay, so when you solve this, you want to get this term by itself, the one that has the variable, the letter. So I'm going to move this to the other side. So I'm going to subtract 140 from both sides. So I have no problem with you using a calculator. So in your calculator, you're going to hit 42 minus 140, which I did that real quick, which, duh, I already know that. That's negative 98 equals 20r. Divide both sides by 20. So I should see these cancel. So I have r by itself, and you already have that in your calculator, so just go ahead and divide that by 20, and you should see that you get a negative 4.9. Okay? And it's okay that you have a decimal. You started with decimals, you're probably going to end up with a decimal. And you know that a negative and a positive gives you a negative, so all's good there. Okay, so you'll have some like that on your homework. Just be sure to show a little work. Remember your homework. The answers were some, but your work is what I'm really looking for. And grade your homework. Okay, then we talked about the distributive property. Hopefully you remember this from other math classes. But what this is saying is negative 10 times everything inside. So I'm going to distribute or give out this negative 10 to everything inside. So be real careful. Negative 10 times x squared, you would just write that like this. Negative 10 times a negative 2x. That's not just a 2, it's a negative 2. Well, think, a negative and a negative is a positive. 10 times 2 is 20, so I have a 20x. Now I have to distribute this negative 10 to the 6 as well. Well, a negative and a positive is negative, and 10 times 6 is 60. That's all you do. Remember, you can't add these together because they're not like terms. Okay, now let's try one that has more variables. We're going to take this 4x to the third, and we're going to multiply it times everything in here. We're going to distribute it in. Remember, when you multiply, what do you do with exponents? You add them. Okay, so if you have the same base, you're going to add. So let's do this. If we take this 4x to the third, so we're going to make 4 times 2 is 8, and that's going to give me x to the fifth, because remember, we're adding our exponents. Okay, now I'm going to take 4x to the third times this. Well, a positive times a negative is negative. 4 times 4 is 16. X to the third times x is x to the fourth, and you still have this little y right here. He doesn't disappear. And 4x to the third times y is 4x to the third y. And that's your answer. Ugly as it may seem, that's your answer. Okay, so you'll have some like that. Okay, this says, oh my goodness, my battery's dying quickly. So while I'm in the middle of this, I don't want my phone to die. So let me plug this in. So professional. Hopefully that's going to work. Okay, find the greatest thing that you can pull out of both of these. And notice, if you're looking at just the numbers, 8 will go into both of those. And then look at your variables. Do you see that they both have at least an x? This is an x to the second. This is only an x to the first. So they at least have an x to the first. So I'm going to pull that out. So what you're going to do is write what they have in common, then with the parenthesis. And you're thinking backwards from what you did up here. You're thinking 8 times what would give you 16? Well, 8 times 2. You're pulling an x out of that if you want to think about it. So I'm just going to have a boring x, because think, what's x times x? X to the second. So that's where that came from. That's a minus sign, so I'll just keep my minus sign. I already have my 8. I pulled it out. I pulled out the x, so I'm left with a y. You can test yourself, because if you would distribute or multiply this back in, you better get exactly what you started with. Okay, let's try another one. Just look at your numbers. I have a 24, I have a 12, and I have an 18. What's the biggest thing that you can think of that will get into all three of those numbers? And I would say 6. Okay, do they all have at least, well, there's an x to the first, and there's an x to the first, so they all at least have an x. And it looks like they all have at least a y. Okay, so I'm going to pull that out. So I'm pulling out what they have in common, parenthesis. So think 6 times 4 would give you 24. I need an x to the second. I only have an x to the first, so I need another x. Hopefully everybody can see if you multiplied that together, that would give you 24 x to the second y, which is what I want. There's a minus sign. 6 times 2 is 12. I already have the x, but look, I need a y to the second, so I need another y here, because y times y gives me y to the second. Here's my minus sign. 6 times 3 is 18, and look, I already have my x, I already have my y, and that's all I need. Okay? All right, so practice those. Hopefully you remember your order of operations. Please excuse my dear Aunt Sally. I think the Matthew C. book does something like parachutes explode. I don't know. I just like, please excuse my dear Aunt Sally. This stands for multiplication and division, and the way you decide which one to do first is whatever comes first in your problem. And hopefully we'll get over here and we'll see that. So this is parentheses, do parentheses first, and that would be like even this. Those are absolute value signs. You can treat that like a parenthesis. Exponents, so we're going to do that. Then multiply and divide, and you do whatever comes first as you're reading left to right. And last but not least, you would add or subtract. So when I do this, I'm going to show a little work, but I know I'm going to do parentheses first. And again, treat that as parentheses. It's wanting the absolute value of -5. Remember, absolute value is always positive. So this guy right here is just a 5. So that's how I'm going to show him my work. Then I'm going to do exponents. This guy right here is a 9. Okay, so here's what I've got. And then I'm going to obviously divide. So what's 12 divided by 2 is 6 right there. So I have 8 plus 6 minus, we did 3 squared is 9, minus the absolute value of -5 is 5. You can use your calculator. Okay, just make sure you give me at least some of this little work here. But 8 plus 6 is 14. Ooh, am I going to get 0? I love that. Or am I? 8 plus 6 is 14. Whenever I do things, I can't ever think straight because I get all like freaked out. So 14 minus 9 minus 5 is indeed 0. Okay, I was messing with my mind there just for a minute. Okay, this is one from your homework. This is like parentheses, they're brackets. It's saying doing everything inside here first. So we're going to do everything in here first, then we'll square it. Because you do what's inside the parentheses first. Well, I've got to multiply, so that right there would give me 32. So in your calculator, you can hit 32 minus 5 plus 2, which is what, 29? Ugh. And you're going to have 29 squared. Now, there is no way on God's green earth I know what 29 squared is in my head. So I'm going to figure out what 29 squared is, and I'm using my daughter's calculator here. Whee! I think I just hit the wrong button. I know that's not 29 squared. 29 squared, I'm looking 841. So it's 841. Big number. Okay, now let's do in here. These absolute value bars, treat them like parentheses. We're going to do everything in here first. I see my exponent, so that right there is a 49. And you know you have to multiply before you add and subtract. So I'm going to have to do 49 times 9. Well, you can bet I'm going to use my calculator for 49 times 9. That right there is 441. So in your calculator, you're probably going to go in order. Go left to right. 3 minus 6, which by the way is -3, minus 441. So 3 minus 6 minus 441. And I get negative 444. So all of this is negative 444. But we know absolute value is always positive. Now be careful, this negative is on the outside, so he stays there. So I've got this right here. 841 minus 444. And let's see what that is. Some of you can do that mentally, and that's dandy. You get 397. And that should be it. Hopefully that helps a little bit.